Chinese Navy ships seen off the coast of Alaska in recent days came within 12 nautical miles of the U.S. coast, making a rare entry into U.S. territorial waters. Here with more details is Wall Street Journal reporter Gordon Lubold from our Washington, D.C. bureau. Gordon, thanks for joining us. What were the Chinese Navy ships doing there in the first place?
Well, there were 5 ships, 3 warships, a sustainment ship, and what's known as an amphibious assault ship, flotilla of 5 vessels that were transiting through the Bering Sea, probably from exercises that the Chinese were doing with the Russians. And so the U.S. noted that this is the first time they've seen activity of the Chinese Navy in that area. But they were just really transiting through. They were not, U.S. officials were very quick to say that there was no threatening activity or posture that they were posing, but that they were just headed through.
So they were just headed through, transiting, but yet they must have known coming within 12 nautical miles would raise some eyebrows.
Right. So there were a few different things kind of in the margins here. One is President Obama was in Alaska at the time highlighting climate change. And then there's a leadership, the leaders are getting together in Washington later this month. So there's kind of a couple interesting factors when it comes to the timing of it. Yeah, certainly they knew. I think that the transiting through the Aleutian Islands, and then what we know now is through U.S. international waters, again, according to the law of the sea, conventional sea laws, that this is what nations do all the time. So this is kind of a first step in terms of not only seeing this flotilla pass through there, but also the Chinese essentially complying with the way other nations transit their ships through international waters.
So this was all done according to protocol, and many experts say, or many officials say, that this Chinese passage could be seen as a positive step. And yet, China strongly protested when a U.S. Navy surveillance jet that flew close, but not even within 12 nautical miles, to those artificial islands that China has been building in the disputed South China Sea, correct? So is there a little bit of hypocrisy here?
Right. Well, so it's interesting, and this is it's an interesting dynamic, and we'll see how it unfolds. That's all you've said is absolutely true, and I don't think U.S. officials expect that suddenly China will stop protesting similar navigation, surface navigation or air navigation in their region. On the other hand, it does kind of this. Turnabout this past few days does kind of put them on equal footing, and it makes it maybe easier for the U.S. and China to kind of talk kind of on an equal playing field about how to operate in and around each other.
Sure, sure. Now, where are these Chinese ships believed to be now?
So they are in the Pacific. I just talked to somebody earlier this morning, and they are out of the area, out of in international waters, out of the U.S. area, and going into the Pacific.
Now, were they engaging in war games earlier with Russia? Was that part of what was happening?
They were in some naval exercises, as I understand it, earlier in the year, last month or so. But what we saw was from what we understand our reporting thus far, there was no live fire exercises going on during this period, and nothing, as I say, threatening or kind of out of the norm for any nation to send its ships through there. So, in that regard, it was kind of a positive step. Now, see, there are other instances where U.S. In one case, a different episode where the U.S. are flying a surveillance aircraft near somewhere over the Pacific near China's coastline, and a Chinese fighter was doing maneuvers around the plane in a very dangerous way. And that's the kind of thing that the U.S. feels very concerned about. This was an example of just kind of a normal interaction, really.
Right. All right. Well, that's reassuring to hear. And thank you so much, Gordon, for that.
Thank you.